The 21-year-old Filipina sensation hadn't even stepped onto the court yet, and Sobeys Stadium was already shaking. The moment her Wednesday night match was announced, the phones exploded, and within minutes, every single seat in the 10,077 capacity stadium had vanished. Not even Taylor Swift, Bruno Mars, or the biggest names in tennis could match what happened next. The moment Alex Eala's name appeared on the Canadian Open schedule, tournament director Karl Hale knew something extraordinary was about to happen. The phones at the tournament office began ringing off the hook. The Filipino community, which had been calling for months now, was finally getting the answer they had been waiting for. And what happened next left even the most seasoned tournament organizers scrambling for words. In just 30 minutes, approximately 3,100 tickets for Eala's Wednesday night session vanished into thin air. Not in a day, not in an hour, in 30 minutes. The demand was so overwhelming that organizers were forced to make a decision that had never been made before. Move Eala's match from the 2,800-seat grandstand to the 10,000-seat center court. We can't put her on there because she probably sold upwards of 5,000 tickets, Hale told the Tennis Channel, shaking his head in disbelief. Our stadium has 10,077 seats, and the Filipino community for months now has been calling in asking when does she play, who does she play, where does she play. My mother knows her uncle, sister's brother, cousin. They were so excited to have her. We told them when we make the draw, we're going to announce her start time, and the phones rang, tickets sold, and boom. It was sold out on Wednesday night just like that. But here's what truly stunned the tennis world. According to Tennis Connected, Eala was the first player, male or female, to sell out an opening Wednesday night session at the Canadian Open since Serena Williams, not Rafael Nadal, not Roger Federer, not Novak Djokovic, just Serena. And now, columnist Joe Warmington of the Toronto Sun captured the moment perfectly. There is no more coveted ticket in Toronto right now than trying to get one to see the two-est international star Eala move over Taylor Swift, Bruno Mars, Scotty Barnes, Vladdy Guerrero Jr., and Auston Matthews because the hottest star in town is not only holding court but filling up the stadium. The car pulled up to the player entrance at Sobeys Stadium. Alex Eala had experienced the fever of Filipino fans before, in Miami, in Melbourne, in Washington. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared her for what awaited her at the gates of the Canadian Open. Before she could even step out of the vehicle, the sound hit her. Not polite applause, not the quiet murmur of a tennis crowd, a primal roar. Thousands of voices, united in a single chant. Let's go, Alex. The noise was so deafening that the in-arena introduction was nearly drowned out entirely. Fans lined up at least 6 or 7 deep on the one open side of a practice court, hoping for a glimpse of the woman taking tennis by storm. The Philippine flags were everywhere, draped over railings in boxes and the upper deck, waved by families, couples, and children. One supporter even showed up wearing a dinosaur costume wrapped in the Philippine flag. Families attended their first ever professional tennis match just to see her. The atmosphere transformed Sobeys Stadium into what felt like Little Manila. Dion Castillejo, a traveling Filipino journalist and former tennis player who has covered Eala's journey around the world, stood on a small grandstand, signing autographs and taking pictures with a loud and proud community that showed up in full force. She called it a super wild Filipino crowd, the loudest I have ever heard. It felt like it was in the Philippines. Incredible. Mark Pecci, the play-by-play commentator on the WTA Tour World Television feed, captured the moment perfectly. It's the kind of noise that accompanies a Grand Slam win, and this is just the second round here in Toronto. The one and only, the extraordinary Alex Eala doing things in tennis that just seem out of this world. The fans had come from across Canada, the United States, and even the Philippines. They had arrived hours early, some camping outside the stadium just to secure a spot. They wore customized Alex Eala shirts, carried signs that screamed Eala-mania and Mahal Kita. The Greater Toronto Area's Filipino community, listed at over 270,000 in the 2021 census, had answered the call. Even the food told the story. One food vendor had swapped its chicken teriyaki for a Filipino chicken adobo rice bowl in honor of the Filipina star. It was a first in tournament history, a menu change driven entirely by a single player. When Eala finally walked onto center court, the stadium erupted. The roar was so loud that the in-arena introduction was nearly drowned out. Philippine flags hung from railings like a World Cup match. Fans dressed in red, blue, and white filled every seat. And then came the chants, "Let's go, Alex! Let's go!" Again and again. Every winner sent the crowd into another frenzy. Every break of serve sounded like championship point. For her opponent, Alicia Parks, it probably felt like she had somehow walked into a match in Manila. Eala, visibly moved by the reception, raised her arms and fired up the crowd. The 21-year-old from Quezon City had left home at 13 to chase a dream. Now, in front of 10,000 screaming fans, she was living it. Toronto had officially turned into Little Manila, and the Eala era had arrived. The 10,000 seats had vanished in 30 minutes. The tickets were gone. The stadium was full. And when Alex Eala finally walked onto center court, the roar that followed was unlike anything the Canadian Open had ever experienced. Move over Taylor Swift, Bruno Mars, Scotty Barnes, Vladdy Guerrero Jr., and Auston Matthews, because the hottest star in town is not only holding court but filling up the stadium, wrote Joe Warmington of the Toronto Sun. There is no more coveted ticket in Toronto right now than trying to get one to see the newest international star, Eala. The sold-out crowd of 10,000 plus was more than just a statistic. It was a testament to the cultural phenomenon that Eala had become. Diane Castillejo, a traveling Filipino journalist and former tennis player who has covered Eala's journey around the world, described the scene as unlike anything she had ever witnessed. Standing on a small grandstand, she signed autographs and took pictures with a loud and proud community that showed up in full force. She called it a super wild Filipino crowd. The loudest I have ever heard. It felt like it was in the Philippines. Incredible. The roar from the rare early tournament sellout crowd following match point of Eala's 3-set win over Alicia Parks surely could be heard across York University's sprawling campus. Eala soaked it all in, putting her hands in a heart shape to pay tribute to another special crowd in a year full of special moments. Mark Pecci, the play-by-play commentator on the WT Tour World television feed, captured the moment perfectly. It's the kind of noise that accompanies a Grand Slam win, and this is just the second round here in Toronto. The one and only, the extraordinary Alex Eala doing things in tennis that just seem out of this world. The demand for Eala was so overwhelming that organizers were forced to move her match 2,800-seat grandstand to center court. Our grandstand court is 2,800 seats. We can't put her on there because she probably sold upwards of 5,000 tickets. Tournament director Karl Hale told the Tennis Channel. It was a decision that had never been made before for a player ranked outside the top 5. The packed stadium wasn't just a testament to Eala's popularity. It was a testament to the Filipino community's pride. The Greater Toronto Area's Filipino community, listed at over 260,000 in the 2021 census, had answered the call. They had come from across the city, the province, and the country. They had arrived hours early, some camping outside the stadium just to secure a spot. They wore custom Eala-mania shirts and carried signs that screamed Mahal Kita. Abby Albino, co-founder of Rise Tribe, a Filipino-Canadian community organization, described the atmosphere as crazy and overwhelming. The energy, the passion, the love was unlike anything she had experienced before. The atmosphere transformed Sobeys Stadium into what felt like Little Manila. Rosemary Amy Seaborn, who works on Toronto's annual Taste of Manila Festival, explained why Eala's connection to the community runs so deep. The one thing about Alex that everybody's proud about is that she acknowledges being Filipino in every event. She will correct your question and say, "I think what you should ask me is if I'm proud of being Filipino and being here." She has embraced it. I think she's really proud of what's happening. And for Eala, who had left the Philippines at just 13 years old to chase a dream that seemed impossible, the packed stadium was overwhelming. I know Toronto is such a multicultural city, so it's nice for me to be here for the first time, to experience that culture and that atmosphere. Of course, out there I felt very much at home with all the people supporting me, she said. The packed stadium that shook the tennis world had proven that Alex Eala wasn't just winning matches. She was bringing a nation with her, and the tennis world would never be the same. The 10,000 fans packed into Sobeys Stadium had been waiting for this moment. Philippine flags waved from every section. The chants of "Let's go, Alex!" echoed through the stadium like thunder. And when Alex Eala walked onto center court, the roar that followed was unlike anything the Canadian Open had ever experienced. But standing across the net was a woman who had already steeled herself for the noise. Caty McNally had known exactly what she was walking into. The 24-year-old American had just pulled off one of the biggest upsets of the tournament, stunning Wimbledon champion Linda Noskova with a comeback from 5-1 down in the first set. Now, she was about to face a player who had sold out a 10,000-seat stadium in 30 minutes. But McNally wasn't intimidated. She had prepared for this moment. It's going to be crazy. I'm expecting a full crowd and every single person cheering for her, and my little team cheering for me, McNally had said before the match. But it's going to be a great experience no matter what. What she's doing for tennis is unreal and selling out stadiums. She had also made a candid admission about her strategy that would surprise many. She didn't want to silence the crowd. She wanted to play through it. "Part of me wants to accept what's going on around and enjoy it and take it in," McNally said. It was a psychological approach that showed the maturity of a player who had been on the tour for years. She knew that trying to block out 10,000 screaming fans would only make it harder. Instead, she planned to embrace the atmosphere and use it as an opportunity to sharpen her mental game. But when the match began, the reality of the Eala effect hit her like a freight train. The first point was a statement. Eala came out firing, her movement crisp despite the nagging right ankle that had troubled her just 24 hours earlier. The crowd erupted with every winner, every break of serve, every moment of brilliance. The chants rained down from the stands with a ferocity that left McNally scrambling for answers. McNally, who had built her game on variety and changing speeds, tried to disrupt Eala's rhythm. She attacked the net, she changed pace. She tried everything in her arsenal. But Eala had an answer for every single tactic. The Filipina's left-handed patterns had become the nightmare of every opponent on the tour, and McNally was no exception. The first set ended in a way that no one, not the commentators, not the fans, not even Eala herself could have predicted. 6-1. A demolition, against a player who had just beaten a Wimbledon champion. I think I was so hyped after the match, it didn't end in the on-court interview. Even when I was in the gym, I was still so hyped, Eala said in a post-match interview. The Filipina sensation had extended her winning streak to 7 matches, continuing a run that had begun with her Washington title just days earlier. McNally, despite the lopsided scoreline, refused to back down. The American had been here before. She had just come back from a 5-1 deficit against Noskova. She knew how to fight. But against Eala, in front of a crowd that had turned center court into a celebration of Filipino pride, the fight just wasn't enough. The second set was a tighter affair. McNally raised her level, forcing Eala to work for every point. But the Filipina's first serve was clinical and her baseline consistency was almost unplayable. When the crucial moments arrived, Eala rose to the occasion. And then, the moment the crowd had been waiting for, the final point. The match was over. Eala had done it. She had silenced the giant slayer who had ended a Wimbledon champion's dream. She had extended her winning streak to 7 matches on the North American hardcourt swing. She had advanced to the 4th round of a WTA 1000 event for the first time since her Miami Open breakthrough in 2025. The roar that followed was deafening. Philippine flags waved from every section. Grown adults wept openly, and Eala, the 21-year-old who had left home at 13 to chase a dream that seemed impossible, dropped to her knees in celebration. McNally, to her credit, walked to the net with her head held high. She had made an honest admission before the match and she was keeping her word. She had blocked out enough noise to preserve her routines, but not so much that she missed the occasion. She had experienced it, she had accepted it, and she had learned from it. What she's doing for tennis is unreal and selling out stadiums, McNally had said. After the match, those words echoed across the tennis world. The roar that had silenced her opponent had become the soundtrack to the Eala era, and the tennis world was listening. The final point was won, the crowd had erupted. Alex Eala had just done the unthinkable, survived a brutal 3-set battle against Caddy McNally, advanced to the 4th round of a WTA 1000 event, and extended her winnings to 7 matches. But the aftermath of this victory would resonate far beyond the Canadian Open. The match had been a war. Eala, who had been dealing with a right foot injury that started at Wimbledon, twisted her ankle again in the 5th game of the 2nd set. She took a medical timeout, had her foot strapped up, but the tape bothered her movement. She ripped it off mid-match and fought through the pain. The final score, 6-3, 5-7, 6-4. 2 hours and 39 minutes of gritty, determined tennis. I think I survived that one. It was tough, Eala said after the match. These 2 weeks have been incredible for me, so many extreme emotions. I'm really doing my best to power through and be professional and do what I know to do. McNally, to her credit, walked to the net with her head held high. She had made an honest admission before the match and she was keeping her word. She had blocked out enough noise to preserve her routines, but not so much that she missed the occasion. She had experienced it, she had accepted it, and she had learned from it. And just like that, the girl who was written off as a flash in the pan had proven that she was the real deal. 7 consecutive wins, a WTA 500 title, a 4th round berth at a WTA 1000 event, and an entire nation behind her. For Eala, the victory was validation. She had beaten 7 top 10 players in 2026. She had won her first WTA Tour title. She had risen from number 140 to number 20 in just 18 months. And now, she had survived an injury scare to advance to the 4th round of the Canadian Open in front of a sold-out crowd of 10,000 screaming fans. The Eala era had officially arrived. But the tournament was far from over. Awaiting Eala in the 4th round was Swiss star Belinda Bencic, the 2015 Canadian Open champion and Olympic gold medalist. The match would be a test of how far the Filipina had come, and whether her foot injury would hold up against one of the best players in the world. Beyond Toronto, the challenges continued. The Cincinnati Open, another WTA 1000 event, was just days away. The US Open, the final Grand Slam of the season, was waiting at the end of the North American swing. And with every victory, the expectations grew higher. But Eala wasn't thinking about the future. She was living in the moment. I want to thank everybody. I know Toronto is such a multicultural city, so it's nice for me to be here for the first time, experience that culture, experience that atmosphere, she had said after her first victory. Of course, out there I felt very at home with all the people supporting me. The crowd at Sobeys Stadium had given her that home. Thousands of Philippine flags had waved. The chants had echoed through the stadium. Chicken adobo had been served at the fan zone. The Filipino community had transformed Toronto into Little Manila. And Eala had rewarded them with a performance that would be remembered for years to come. The road ahead was demanding, but Eala had already proven that she belonged among the best in the world, and with every victory she was rewriting the history books for her country. The Eala era had officially arrived, and the tennis world would never be the same.